All right. Without further ado, I think we can get going. Hello, Muhiba from Oman as well. Everyone, welcome to the Team Coaching in Action Stories from the Front webinar. It's a pleasure to have you with us today. My name is Usama Labib. People call me Us. I'm the CEO and founder of Eclia. It's an edtech company and the creator and founder of Miki Island, a team development platform based out of Singapore. Maybe you can tell with my accent, originally from France and Morocco. I'm also a certified team consultant, an associate faculty at the National University of Singapore, and previously the head of learning and development at IKEA, Southeast Asia. What we will be talking about today, we have worked very hard with the panelists today, and we'll tell you a little bit more about the role of the team coach today and tomorrow. We'll talk about key team challenges that they're seeing from their clients, especially around team motivation, team alignment. We'll talk about the territorial dimension of collaboration in high-performing teams, game-based and other innovative ways to develop teams, and finally, what do we think is the future of team coaching? We promise, that's a little bit our promise and our commitment for today. It's going to be highly engaging and interactive, so please feel free to ask questions in the chat. You can even unmute yourself and ask directly a question, that's even better. It's going to be highly practical and story-based, so we're not going to share any theory, framework. We're just going to hear about stories from the panelists, and it's going to be honest and direct, so hopefully not too much of fluff, not too much of buzzwords. If you are able to stay with us until the end, I think it's going to be 75 minutes to an hour and a half. We have two special gifts at the end of the webinar for you. One coming from Miki Island and another one coming from TCGA, the Team Coaching Global Alliance, with whom we're partnering. Without further ado, let me introduce the speakers, the most important people of the webinar today. I am really honored to be joined today with Radu, Whitney, Radoslava, and Emmanuel. Let's take a little bit of time to welcome you properly. Radu, how are you doing today?
Excellent. A nice sunny day here in Romania.
I see. Very sunny in your office as well, so that's
Of course,
really
yeah,
good.
palm trees, everything.
Whitney, I know it's 7 a.m. where you're calling from. Thank you so much for joining so early.
Yes, happy to be here. I'm in Indianapolis, Indiana, in the US. Glad to be here. I'm an executive and team coach, and I'm here with Team Coaching Global Alliance. I'm their program lead for the Global Summit happening June 15th through the 19th this summer.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Radoslava, I call you Ava, or you can call her Ava as well in the chat. Welcome to the webinar as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is also sunny here in Bulgaria. So I'm preparing to go to the sea, as you can see.
Great. Tell us a little bit more about you, Radoslava. I know you're a team coach. I know you worked with corporate organization as an HR director as well before.
Okay, a little bit more, 25 years in the corporate world. And last year I decided to jump completely at almost half century of age. I jumped into the entrepreneurship, and today I'm a leadership coach, mentor, and trainer. So that's it.
Very good. Thank you so much, Ava. And finally, last but not least, Emmanuel.
Yes, nice to meet you all. So I'm Emmanuel. I'm French born, but for the past th 3 decades, I've been living in Central and Eastern Europe, and more specifically in Budapest, Hungary. I'm a team and executive coach for about 13 years. And before that, I have been working for 15 years in different corporations, different leadership roles in the region, in Budapest, in Ukraine, in all the Central Europe. Happy to be here.
All right. Thank you so much. Welcome. So without further ado, I'm just going to stop the sharing so we have something that is much more human and we can almost touch each other. That's really great. We're here to talk about team coaching in action. We're here to hear some of your stories, but team coaching is somehow fairly new. Let's say, I don't know if it's new. It's fairly new. I think it's always good to start with a good definition. I've seen in the chat, some of you are already team coaches. Some of you are just executive coaches interested in team coaching. So Whitney, I'll ask you first, what exactly is team coaching? Tell us.
Yeah. Well, when I think about one-on-one coaching, it's that co-collaborative process where you're maximizing personal and potential, right? We all share that as coaches. When we go to transition to the shift of team coaching, we're really starting to look at the team as a single entity. How do they function and behave? And so we're looking at both their performance and also that shared common goal that they have together collectively. And that's what they're moving toward. So the role of the team coach is really to focus on team alignment, the development. We're looking at delivery of around that shared goal. And I keep saying shared, and I'll probably say that a lot. That's really essential in the team coaching process, where it's different than facilitating, where the team is collectively defining that. So the team coach helps support that process. Another way I've heard it described is helping the team take what is invisible and create visibility within the team so they see each other and understand each other, and also what it is that they're going to go and do in the world.
All right. Thank you so much, Whitney. Maybe if I build on this and ask Radu, Emmanuel, Radoslava, maybe one of you can tell us a little bit about your journey in becoming a team coach, how you made this transition from working with single executive or individuals and working with teams today.
Yeah, maybe I can start.
Thank you.
So I have pivoted myself from the organizational management. So I have worked with teams mostly all my career. So for me, actually, it was easier to go directly to coaching teams. I didn't know that back then, some years ago. And while learning and developing this skill in one-on-one, I was doing in parallel also team coaching. But I didn't call it like that back then. So,
Okay.
of course, since then, it's a lot of learning and experiencing. So, yeah, it's a process. It's a learning process.
So maybe I can continue. When I was HR director, one sentence came back again and again in the leadership meetings, and it was always, "We have good people, so why are we struggling?" And in fact, at first glance, you can see that in the organization, everything is perfect. The KPIs, there are talents inside the organization, but still something is missing, and people are feeling tired. They are feeling exhausted. Managers spend more time in conflicts and so on and so on. And what I realized during that time, it was exactly that we have to work in the team. Why? Because if you have individuals who are very much motivated, in fact, it is not a guarantee that the team will be effective and engaged enough. And what is inside this on the basis? It is the lack of alignment. The lack of alignment in terms of vision, mission, values, direction. So when I realized this, everything changed. And when I jumped into the role of coach, I realized that this is a very powerful tool to work with teams.
Nice. Well, on my side, when I was in corporations, I experienced being part of a leadership team, or then later on leading leadership teams. And when I turned into coaching, I did first of all a lot of executive and leadership coaching, one-to-one individual coaching. But what I observed is that I began to miss a piece of what's happening. So I became curious very much about what my clients were sharing about what's happening there at their work, in their teams, and I understood that I have only one small piece of what's there, and the context, the systemic thing, I was a little bit missing that, and that what pushed me turn into team coaching as well, because that's basically a very systemic approach. And I realized as well that not every so you have also group coaching and team coaching, and this is not the same, because a group and a team is not the same, obviously. And what I observed as well is that in groups, people tend to protect their own territory until they become a team once, where people are more willing to optimize everything for the collective outcome, even at their own cost sometimes. And that's what I loved in that sense, this holding different perspectives and different dimensions in the same room in the same time. shifting from one-to-one perspectives.
Thank you so much for this. I understand that especially in the team coaching process, and there's a lot of different things. We can talk about team facilitation, team building, team coaching. It's kind of words that somehow look like the same, but are actually quite different in practice. I know that part of team coaching, the contracting at the beginning is something very, very important. So maybe I can come back to you, Whitney. I know that's something that you care and talk a lot about as part of the TCGA process. Tell us more about what exactly does it look like to contract with a team at the beginning of a process.
Yes. Contracting, what's the saying? Always be contracting. The process of defining what it is that the team is going to accomplish together continues to bring out the unknown into the shared space. So what team members will know one another, what it is that they're going towards. So the role and the competency of a coach is essential in understanding what are those factors that are needed to draw that out of the team so that they understand what is it that we're here to do, which is the differentiator between maybe some facilitation where you're coming in with a set agenda to say, and here's what we're going to accomplish together today, where the team coach is asking the team in that contracting process for them to collectively define that outcome. And that's where the great process of shared goals come in. And I've seen teams, they come together, and at first they're not always sure what is this going to look like we're team coaching, what are we and as they ask the question, even yesterday in a session, asking the question, what is it that we're here to do, and for them to take the time to share and define and get really clear on where it is that they are going. Ownership at the end of the session, everybody was excited. They all had their action items and they knew what position they would all take to move forward toward that shared goal. So I think having those competencies like contracting are important to develop, which is a little bit different than the role of an individual coach. Yes, there is contracting that takes place and that looks different in different stages. And so it's I'll call it an expanded competency when you go to take it to the team.
All right. And maybe it's a great transition. And before I bring you back into the conversation, I'd love to hear from the audience. If you have been working with teams, or maybe you are a team leader, we'd love to hear a little bit more from you. What are the key challenges that you see teams facing today in the workplace? Or in other words, what do teams truly need to kind of reach high performance? I'll just let you and give you a little bit of time maybe to tell us in the chat. We'd love to hear some of your experience as well. And while you let us know in the chat, maybe I'll direct that question to you, Radoslava. You've been an HR director, so you've seen it from the inside out, you know. Tell us a little bit more. What are you seeing with organization today?
Thank you for this opportunity. In fact, there is a kind of myth in organizations, and it is about if we hire talented people and motivate them enough, the team will naturally perform. And this could be true, but in fact, in the real situations, it is not. Because in fact, what is the most important is the collective alignment. And as a leadership coach today, I often see teams where every individual is capable, in fact, also talent, but yet something is missing. And why? Because people are aligned around their own priorities, their own directions, not around the shared direction, as I mentioned before, around the mission, the vision, and the values. And from my experience as HR director, I was participating in a merger of two banks. And in fact, I can give an example here. It was two completely different corporate cultures. In fact, the values were the same, but the behaviors and the actions behind were completely different. And starting with this merger, in fact, we were thinking, okay, it will be easy, in fact, if and when we merge, because we share the same values. the truth is the contrary. In fact, what is behind? What are the actions of the individuals? What are the behaviors behind those kind of values? And what we faced at the very beginning, it was a kind of endless meetings with no decisions, passive agreements, let's say, duplicated work. Managers, they didn't feel the trust, and in fact, they are doing over functional work in order to show that they're capable to do so. People were saying also yes to everything, and after they didn't perform. And also the real talks were in the corridors and between people, informally, let's say. And once we realized this, in fact, it was magical because we had to align on the same direction, on the same purpose. And also to ask the question about the trust inside the team. Or when you have the trust established already, after that it is really very easy. So that I could give as an example as HR director, but going through my role of leadership coach of teams, I could say something very important. Diagnostics is crucial. So you start from diagnostics. You don't start like HR director when you have the situation and when you see just to go for actions. No, this is not the right way. In fact, I realized that when I start coaching teams. And you start with the diagnostics, with the current situation. You pass through diagnostics of the corporate culture, vision, mission, value. You pass through diagnostic of team effectiveness. You go through diagnostic of the individuals in order to understand the overall situation. You can add also the 360-degree feedback and everything else, which is very important to have the first biggest picture. After that, you go for workshops, you go for team buildings, you go for some actions and so on. And at the end, what is the most important is to measure this. And now the question, how do you measure the trust? How do you measure the positive feelings within the team? And this is something very interesting. You can measure, of course, you can measure. But this is the process I realized is the right one going toward the team effectiveness.
Emmanuel, it feels like you want to add something.
Yeah, maybe one or two thoughts related to that. For me, what I say has been one of the main reasons why today team coaching is really necessary in the organization is the increasing of complexity in the world we are and in the world in which the organizations and the human or the systems are dealing. All these organizations, the human or information systems, they are getting more and more interconnected and interdependent. You have the hybrid work, constant change, the structures in matrix, global teams, cross-functional collaboration, the AI revolution, and so on and so on. So the success depends more and more on collective intelligence now and less on the individual outstanding performance. And that's, I really believe that the teams need spaces where they can examine how they work together and not just what they deliver. And that's exactly what happens during coaching sessions, because we offer a way to build and to develop this collective capacity more than the individual one, which is the ability for the team to make sense of the complexity all together as a team, as a group, and to have those difficult conversations and then to adapt in real time. That's the difference it makes from my point of view.
Thank you. I want to build on a question from Isaac in the chat. Eva, you mentioned earlier that there's a lot of talk that is in the corridors, and I think the question, and maybe I'll direct it to Whitney and Radu. Hopefully, I don't put you two on the spot. But when you coach a team, you have to coach and work with them in the moment, but you also have to integrate everything that's happening, outside of the room and those informal moments. How do you integrate that in the team coaching process and conversation, Whitney and Radu?
Okay, my view on that is that team coaching starts before it starts.
Okay.
So you need to be very aware what happens a lot before actually you get the team in the same room and you start actually working. There's a lot of information out there. Yeah, just looking at dynamics, how people appear, how they interact. There's a lot of information. Actually, this kind of corridor kind of talk. Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm also witnessing it in the pauses. When we do some sort of a team coaching longer session, and there's a pause. A pause. It's a very how could you say intelligence gathering point.
Great.
I think it's helpful in the onboarding process for all team members to complete some kind of assessment, whether it be a formal or informal assessment, to gather what their perspective is on the culture within the organization. What are their priorities? What are their challenges? I've also found it very helpful to observe before introducing the role of team coach. And so that has been helpful to be on site or virtual to gather a perspective outside of our work within the team coaching setting. I have learned that as working with individual team leaders and taking their intake information, there often is a mismatch once you get into the team. So that's where I have expanded taking in different information for that reason. Within a team coaching session, I think it is creating the space, whether it's through silence, through pause, or through direct question. And sometimes it is through experiential learning that kind of bumps the team out of what they think they're talking about, and bumps them into experiencing something that surfaces what needs to be addressed in the room.
Thank you so much, Whitney. I think another kind of topic that came quite often in a lot of the questions that you put in the chat, and thank you so much for this, is the relationship a little bit between communication and trust, and what is your role as a team coach to kind of build trust. Like you say, Radoslava, it feels like when trust is there, everything is flowing, but we can't ask a team, guys, you need to trust each other. So how do we create the environment? How do you work with teams for trust to come in? And I know, Emmanuel, this is something that is very close to you, especially about the conversation that teams avoid, right?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about how you work with teams around that process and this topic.
Well, what I've experienced is that the most teams, they are not avoiding difficult conversations because they don't know that they matter. Usually they avoid them because the way they perceive these, or I would say the relational cost that they perceive feels too high. They would not enter into those conflicts or difficult situations because they fear that it will cost the relation between themselves, or that it will ruin the morale of the team or the company. And but most of to give you some examples about avoided topics is for instance the power or the hierarchy, sometimes resentment between functions that are represented by board members or leadership team members, emotional exhaustion of some of the members in the team, the behavior of the leader himself. Sometimes it's something like a kind of taboo tema, and misalignment about decisions, or something tricky as well, the unequal contribution. When people around the table, the boardroom, they say that, well, I'm putting much more than my neighbor here. And so these kind of unequal. So these are typically very, very difficult conversation to bring that. And but usually what comes to their mind is, or what the inner dialogue is it safe to tell the truth here? And what I think about psychological safety, because this is what it is about finally here, is that it's not the absence of discomfort or tension in those conversations or in a situation. It's rather the confidence that that tension will not destroy the relationship. So what I used to do is that I don't believe that I can, as a coach, create the honesty directly. My role is rather to create the conditions in the team or in the small lab we have during those team coaching sessions, or in the process where the honesty becomes possible to some extent, or they start believing that we can survive the honesty.
All right.
And it sometimes, to create this stressful container, I would say it start by slowing things down when you notice that emotions are coming up and so on, to welcome the emotions, to name them, to slow things down, to making those, as witness said, I love that statement, to make things, even invisible things, visible. And when you notice as a coach the patterns of the team or the dynamics and you name them, when, as an example, you say, well, I noticed that we've spoken about around that issue 3 times since we have begun this session, but nobody is naming it directly. So what is behind? Tell me more. What do you think is? And so on. So it helps raising things in this safe container.
Great. If I wanted to go to you, Radu, and in the meantime, there's a very nice question for you, Emmanuel, which is what are the conditions that are essential to create this environment? Maybe we can come back to it. But Radu, what are some of your tips? What are some of your ways of working to create that environment and trust within the team?
Yeah, I would like maybe to switch a little bit this kind of question, because building trust is not my role. No. What can I do is actually to surface what is the level of trust in the team for them to see it. And I like to do it because I think that people talk a lot, and they how to say, hallucinate a lot about what trust is and how it looks like. That actually, if you create an experience that you can actually make them feel, and through this experience surface the kind of behaviors that show trust or distrust, this is more relevant than talking about trust. So yes, I'm a very big fan of creating experiences that maybe stress a little bit the system, because while stressing a little bit the system, things are surfacing, and it's for them to see. Say it's not my role to do anything, but I can help them see and say, okay, no, so.
Thank you, Radu. And I think one thing that is starting to appear, and that's something that's very aligned with GDQ Associates, which is our research partner. We know there's a lot of methodology and kind of framework around how teams evolve over time. One thing that I really appreciate with what GDQ Associates is saying is that trust is actually an outcome, right? In the same way that you can't tell your sales guy, go and sell more. You don't just sell more. You build better relationship with the clients. You have better products. You listen better to your clients, and the outcome is going to be sales. And maybe trust is a little bit the same thing. The more alignment you have within the team, the more safety you have within all of the team members, then trust will somehow appear. Whitney, Radoslava, any thoughts around this, and maybe some practical example? You've been maybe working with teams around that recently, Whitney?
Yes. I appreciate the way you describe that trust is an outcome. It's not something that you talk to then create. I think experiences and scaffolding those experiences so that team members can reveal things about themselves to understand one another for self-disclosure, and also to talk about the team as a single entity. Some practical examples is I love to use pieces of art, whether they're well-known or unknown, and placing them in the space and asking a question or asking what surfaces, if it's tell me about something great that you see in your team related to this picture. It takes the focus and intention off of one another staring at each other in their eyes, and shifts it onto a piece of art that then they're able to create and make meaning and hear others' perspectives. And then it shifts back to, and now what do we want to be able to take from that? Another is even sharing a story. I worked with a team, I'll use it again from yesterday, is they had a shared experience offsite, and they each had a prompt to share, and were able to write a couple of their thoughts and what it meant for their team on a sticky note, and then got up and moved and put it on a sticky note. So while it seems like a little bit of facilitation was needed, instead of it always being a verbal conversation at the table, there are other modalities so that they're experiencing their perspective in different ways. ultimately that's surfacing what really mattered about this particular topic to the team. And that helped, again, surface that part.
Thank you so much, Whitney. I want to go back to the question that was posted in the chat for you, Emmanuel, and I think it links also to what Radu was saying. His role and the role of the team coach is not to build trust, but maybe create the environment for trust to emerge. And I think the question was, what are those conditions that are essentials for trust and psychological safety to emerge in the team, Emmanuel?
First of all, I fully agree with Radu that it's not our role. We are not here trust creator, but we can be conditions creator or helper, supporter. So one of the things which is really needed in order to generate trust and create trust within the group and with us, because when we are team coaching, we are part of the system. So the way we modelize how we trust or we can generate trust with each of the members of the team is important, and it comes back to contracting and building alliance. So it's one of the competencies a team coach must master to build alliance, usually with the team leader first, because he will be the sponsor of the team, of the leadership team coaching process and journey, and then with all the members, collectively and individually. And one small activity or different activity, one are more, or two examples I can give you. One is a little bit more cognitive, but it's asking them about practically giving or sharing with each other in a kind of speed meeting, a kind of user manual to each other, saying that, well, this is how I work with trust or about trust. This is what would create, enhance, or destroy trust in terms of behaviors or whatever. And they can share with each other because they do not have not the same thing will produce the same effect on the trust level or trust capital they have. Or some people will rather give a lot of trust at the beginning, and then you can only diminish this capital of trust in them, or in the opposite, they rarely give trust at the beginning and they build it from top or upwards. And so it's important to make that difference appear. Another thing is simply sharing about themselves and showing a little bit of more personal or vulnerable aspects. And one simple thing I used to do with groups, let's say midday when it's a one-day team coaching kickoff session, is to ask them in advance to bring an object or something or a symbol, an object that they like or that speaks about them, and let them speak about it. I brought this one because, well, that's how I relate to it and that's what it tells about me. So you open up a little bit more. It always helps getting closer.
Love that. Thank you so much. There's something that I talk about that I think you mentioned somehow is this idea of trust the bank. You know, when you build relationship, whether you're aware or not, you're either building trust or taking away trust, and there's this kind of trust bank that is happening within all of the relationship between team members and team leaders, and you can think about it in your personal relationship as well. And I really love the point that you mentioned, Emmanuel, around kind of vulnerability and how you can create the right environment for that to happen. And I'll come to you in a second, Ava, but I'm sure we're all very familiar with the work of Amy and Munson and the relation to failure and asking, for instance, the team leader to role model that. Like one thing that I've seen is it's very easy and I'm based in Asia, so there might be some cultural bias here. This idea of saving face and the cultural relationship people can have in Asia with failure and hierarchy, which is slightly different than Europe. If I go and do some work with the team and I ask team members to share some of their failures, to name their emotions, it's going to be a dead silence in the room. And unless the team leader model the right behaviors, no one is going to talk. So I think it's also interesting to look at, the role of the team leader in creating this environment and supporting that and behavior and kind of modeling the right behaviors in the team. Ava, tell us a little bit more. I know you do a lot of work around that. I know you worked recently with a client on this as well. How do you approach this? I think we can stay a little bit more on the topic because it seems like a really, really interesting point.
Thank you. Yes, the topic is quite interesting, in fact, and Coming back about the trust, I really like it as an outcome as well. And when mentioning measurement, I think trust is also part of the measurement of the success of one team. And in fact, just to add some other conditions that could create trust, this could be the co-development, for example. And co-development, in fact, is a very powerful tool that you can use because people are sharing. There is one person sharing the problem. There are the other people who are giving some solutions. After that, the person took the best solution for himself, trying, testing, and coming back and sharing, and this creates this kind of trust in this circle. I liked also very much the switching to some creativity, the shifting, and the shocking idea, let's say, of Radu, because you need definitely to switch. And one of the things that it could be also used is the game. And when you are in the game, you are like a child, and you come back to your childhood, to your values, real values, to your real identity and authenticity. And you are vulnerable when you are authentic, when you are when you find out your identity, let's say. So this is also some tool that could be used to shift and to create this psychological safety. And coming back to my experience, recent experience, let's say, with the company I'm working with, in fact, we passed through all these diagnostics that I mentioned before. What was really valuable, it was to see it at a lot of levels. The first one starting on a corporate culture level, going through team effectiveness level, individual level, and this 360 feedback. And just to mention, it is something very important. It was anonymous, and people were feeling free to share. And it was really anonymous. And I stress on that because in most of the organization, when I was HR director, I remember very well that people were not trusting this anonymity. But in fact, when you have the proper communication, when you explain to the people, they understand and they start sharing. And also, I like this about the failure, because if you give the space to the people to make mistakes and to admit their mistakes and also to take lessons from the mistakes, this creates a kind of a corporate environment where you have the trust. So going through the diagnostics, after that, we started working with on workshops, and people started sharing because they have all these levels of understanding of what is happening. And in most of the cases, people do not understand because, as I mentioned before, they are individuals and they're more focused on their own priorities, KPIs, operational tasks, and everything. And also, I don't allow myself to fail. But if you give this possibility to fail, and if you don't blame for this, it's magical. You create this trusting environment. So this is my experience from the company, and we continue, by the way, with the process, and we come now to the game simulation, which is the key.
And that's a perfect segue, Radu and Radoslava, sorry, and I'll go to Radu for this. You mentioned this idea almost of kind of stress testing, Radu, so that we can see the raw behaviors, not the learned behaviors, because it's very easy for everyone to say, what does it feel like? What does a high-performing team look like in theory? It's different to actually be able to put that into practice. And I know you use a lot of different type of experiential learning, game-based learning activities, Radu. So tell us a little bit more about what you're using. I think some tips maybe for the people in the chat, and what is your experience working with this with your team and your clients?
Is this for me?
Yes, Radu.
Okay. Yeah. Just a short intro following up the trust part from the previous idea. I think that clearly there are two parts of the trust. One is the trust related to the competence of people, and one is more human. And when you look at people and you see only roles, Yeah. So it's difficult. This is why experiences takes people out of their roles, and you can see them at human level, let's say. This is why I like to bring people into this kind of simulation, game-based learning kind of activities, because this takes them out of the role, out of the hierarchy, and people are actually diving in the experience, and they show themselves, and we can also see what happens in team dynamics. And of course, while observing with a, let's say, a trained eye from outside, you can learn a lot from this team. It's sort of a diagnostic in real time. Yeah. So this is something I do a lot, and of course, Miki Island is one of the tools I'm using. Also, I think, and I've tried also with kid games, and it's incredible how people relate when you throw them a challenge, which is actually a very childish game, and you can see behaviors that are very related to what they do in practice every day at work. So this is fascinating when we do the debrief and we make the connections. They say, "Wow, this is exactly what I'm doing every day at work." So it's crazy, but it's a systemic, kind of world that we are living in, and we are showing ourselves as we are in different contexts, but actually we are somehow the same entity. Yeah.
And maybe let us know in the chat what are some of the kind of experiential, game-based, any other innovative ways you're working with teams to kind of develop them. We'd love to hear from you. Whitney, I know this is something that you're doing quite a bit in your practice. Tell us a little bit more about, how is it perceived from team? What's the reaction when you put teams into this type of activity or experiential learning programs? How is the reaction from them?
I think it depends on the team. Depending on, for example, I work in Butler University, the MBA program. And we use a lot of game-based learning for students to understand their behaviors in real time and reflect on what that means for the impact of their team. And if a student is coming, they're open to build with marshmallows and with noodles or to build with tubes, and they're open and willing. That's expected. Sometimes the challenge is shifting to an executive team who thinks they're playing games is playing games. It's kind of silly. So I think having a sophisticated offering like an online tool is well received, to say, okay, we'll play this game. It reminds me of a game I played when I was younger. But once they get into the game, it unlocks and opens a new way of seeing how they contribute and how their team interacts together. It's always been a positive surprise a lot of times when you work with adults playing games who maybe are a little bit closed off to the idea at first. But if you get to the heart of games, they're play, and we love to play.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of one of the sessions that we run recently with Miki Island with senior executive. And when we start telling the storytelling, about the plane going to Hawaii and the plane crashing, and the CEO was in the room, like this, and looking at me a little bit like, are you really gonna make me play a game? This is my time is very expensive. This is what we're gonna be doing. And 5 minutes into the game, he was the biggest kid in the room. He forgot about everything. And you start to see some of the kind of default behaviors, not what he learned in MBAs and what he read in books, like the real him came into the room. And then it allows us to work on that, because this is really where we can add value to them. It can be somehow, or it is easier to be at your best when everything around you is great. Can you still be your best when you are in a stress environment, when there's KPI, when there's deadline, when there's crisis in the world, when your company is not performing? Let's talk about this. And I think this is what allows for some really, really great kind of team transformation. And just coming back to you, Emmanuel, we'd love to hear maybe one of the best team transformation that you've seen with your client, or maybe a shifting point, something that happened where you went, okay, there is a shift that just happened, a turning point that's kind of bringing us closer to what we try to achieve with this team.
What comes to my mind now is I was working with a leadership team that they kept describing that they had issue with slow execution. They kept saying that, well, we are just too slow in execution. We won't meet the targets, the KPIs, and whatever. Slow execution was really at the sense of the conversations. And for the first session, second session, third session, but by the third sessions we had together over the time, it became clear somehow, it came up that the real issue was that nobody trusted the leadership meetings themselves. So what happens in the meetings, they found they had a personal experience of it's not effective, or decisions are not final, because it happened that the decisions were revisited afterwards in private conversations in the corridor, at the coffee machine, or whatever. So the alignment existed somehow in the room, in the boardroom, in the leadership meeting room, but then it somehow disappeared outside of it. And during that session, the third one, as I remember, one executive finally said, and it was so, probably it came from the trust that was building up from session to session. But at that session, he dared saying that, guys, I don't think we actually disagree on strategy. I think we disagree on whether it's safe to disagree with Peter. And Peter was the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, you can imagine, big silence in the room, air frozen. And that was the beginning of the real work at that time. It was a turning point indeed.
Very nice. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. I'll just open up this question to Radu, Ava, Whitney. Any big turning point, big team transformation that you've seen in the work you've done with clients recently?
I would say with my client today that I'm working, the company that I already mentioned, in fact, after the diagnostics, it was the turning point, because I'm working with the CEO on these topics. And in fact, he was knowing that something is happening, but he couldn't admit it, in fact, in front of himself. And this is the turning point. When you show to one business leader some KPIs, some figures, some results, in fact, this is the most powerful thing, that this is the turning point. If you speak with facts, if you are talking about business execution, if you are talking about performance, effectiveness, this works very, very well, and I think this is the turning point. And I saw a question from Craig a little about in this direction, and I would like to answer to this question. And thank you very much, Craig, for this, because I was on the two sides, HR director, and today I'm a leadership coach also for teams. In fact, how do you sell this team coaching? You don't name it team coaching or whatever, because it is very complicated to explain this. You're talking about exactly business execution. You're talking about performance. You're talking about organizational shift, effectiveness, and so on and so on. And working with this client today, after the diagnostics, now we're working on total organizational change of his team. And we started from the organizational chart. We are going through preparation of job descriptions, including the vision, the mission, the values, the direction, the alignment, and everything inside this. We work on the role descriptions as well to have clear roles, and I think this is also something very crucial. And I use this from my HRD experience. So when you combine all this business execution, organizational chart, the roles, description, you have already the clear KPIs, and you have contributed to this organization in a way that you make a complete shift there. I hope, Craig, I answered your question.
Thank you so much, Ava, and maybe just going back to this with you, Radu, and Whitney, because this is something that I personally hear a lot when I work with people in the team development or team coaching space, which is it's fairly new. We're somehow still trying to somehow understand what exactly is team coaching, what's the difference with team facilitation, how do we bring clarity to the client, how do we get higher to kind of do team coaching or team development work. What is your experience with this, Radu and Whitney?
For me, there are two parts. The first is being hired by a team coach typically comes through working with the team leader one-on-one through coaching.
Mhm.
We have an established trust. They've worked and recognized their business priorities. And then there's typically a moment halfway through a year-long engagement, and even in a halfway between 6 months, is they'll recognize and go, okay, I want to move this forward, and now I need to get my team on board. What's the process for that? And so having and really my role as a team coach then is in their eyes is to be a team advisor, someone who is supporting the work of moving their business priorities and sustaining change through that process is the team coaching engagement. So it's on purpose for a purpose meeting. And then that gives that sustainability of the change. So that's been a really helpful way to be hired into a team. That's always almost my always open door is through one-on-one coaching. A second is organizations are still, I have found, unsure of the phrase team coaching. So Ava, to go back to saying, don't call it team coaching. They're not ready for that yet. But what they are ready for is around team performance, alignment, execution. What does your team development programming? That all resonates with organizations. So if I can talk about, okay, here's team development, organizations understand the efficiency of working with a team opposed to one-on-one. And we also recognize that the sit and get information does not change teams. Like going to the one-time workshop to listen and then have no transformation or change. L&D is understanding this is not serving us. And so I think there's an opportunity in the market right now to position team coaching through the doors of sustaining change through transformation, and that is the tool that helps support that.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Radu, what is your experience with this?
I'll try to answer two questions at once. So,
All right.
I think there is a systemic approach always works and has great efficiency. And what Whitney was telling us about, okay, I'm moving from coaching the leader, coaching the team. And this is, in my experience, this kind of integrated approach. Yeah, starting from, for example, I have a recent example with a company. So I have coached the founders, which are the owners of the company. Now, for some months, and new awareness came up. Okay, we went to the management team. We have worked very nicely there, surfacing what Ava was saying about values, for example, was great workshops. Yeah, trying to surface what values from inside, and then going to the whole organization. So it was a full-scale kind of approach that touched all the levels and all the microsystem, system, and big system. So it's some sort of an embedded system and system kind of approach, and it works. It worked well, and I remember maybe two shifting points or two interesting moments that actually happened through an experience. For example, working with values. One is, okay, we can do it cognitively and trying to analyze things and compare and negotiate and stuff. But actually, we did it very, very experientially. So we build stuff. And while building stuff and talking about how we are building and how we are connecting each other in building, of course, something totally different from what they're building at their office. A very intimate connection to values appeared. So people are feeling it while they're doing and say, okay, this is it. Yeah. All my body, my mind, and my heart.
Thank you so much about this. And I think it's a great example. And we spoke as well about, decision making and what you mentioned as well, Whitney, around this idea of team effectiveness, team performance. There can be a misunderstanding that, team coaching is all about the soft things. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about how we feel and communication, and the reality is that organizations are not going to pay for that because they don't care enough about this. So really positioning it around helping teams perform better in the context of your organization and where you are and what are your business priorities. And the more you can align these two, and whether it's called team coaching or team performance or organizational development, maybe it doesn't matter so much. And I think one thing that I'm almost hearing from you is maybe one of the best way to kind of sell team coaching is not to sell team coaching, is to talk about the things around it, the impact, or start with the team building and get them to understand that there's so much more than they can do, and then say, okay, what more can we do together? Or work with a leader and then get him on board on the journey. So that's a really interesting insight from everyone. We can't talk about team coaching if we don't talk about the future of team coaching, and things are changing really, really quickly. And it's interesting because it's fairly a new practice, and at the same time, I won't say the word disruptive because this is a little bit of a buzzword, but there's technology, there's AI, both with your clients, both with ourselves. I'd love to hear a little bit your thoughts on what do you think the future of team coaching is all about? And I'm happy to kind of leave it really free as a conversation. It can be about how you integrate AI and technology in your practice. It can also be about what will a team look like 5 years down the road? Because if the type of teams change, most probably our role as team coaches, team development practitioners will change as well. Who would like to share their points of view on that first?
May
I'll
I
start us
start
off.
this?
Oh, go ahead, Ava.
Okay. Sorry, Whitney. Okay, so I will be short because I believe the future of team coaching will become simultaneously more technological, for sure, but in the same time more human. And this may sound paradoxically for you, but this is exactly what I see happening, in fact. More we are going in the technologies, in hybrid work, in AI, faster decision cycles, a lot of changes, suddenly brutal changes, multiple generations working in the same room, let's say. In fact, the most important thing will remain the human. I'm using in my team coaching and also in individual coaching something which is called AI simulator. What does it mean? It means that you can train yourself into this tool, into this AI. It is about assertiveness, it is about giving and receiving feedback, and so on and so on. But people are coming to me afterwards and they want to talk humanly. They want to try it in real situations. After this simulator, they go on the spot where they work and they test it human to human. And I have a lot of teams who are asking when we will bring together physically. Online is something okay for me. I don't need to move and go somewhere. But in fact, I'm missing the human touch. I'm missing the feelings. I'm missing the emotions to those people, those linkages that will remain. And more we are separating from because of the technologies. More and more we are striving to be together. So this is what I think into this direction.
Thank you so much, Ava. Whitney, you wanted to build on that or share your
Yeah, I
perspective?
do. Ava, I agree that it's both human and technology together, and it's learning in this in between. What does this look like? When I think about the future of team coaching, I don't think the coaching profession is really ready yet. And I think we need to become ready on how do we engage as team coaches. Because as you said, change is happening so fast and it's creating a lot of stress in a lot of ways, both internally and externally within companies. And so when I think about the future of team development, it is experiential. And it's how do we integrate practices of technology to support the human dynamics that are at play. And we know the history of great teaching and learning is always been experiential. That's how we make our meaning. And so when we put that into a team context, it helps bring people together. And there are a lot of great AI tools that I'm open to. So if you've got AI tools, audience, that you are using, would you share those, please? And how you're integrating those into your practice. I also a little bit have to laugh when I think about AI is before AI, we're in an age of information where there's so much content. There's a lot of bias that's happening. Remember when the internet came out, like all of this is happening to us fast, and it feels like very similarly. Now that AI is here, we're like, how are we going to do this? I have full confidence that we'll be able to integrate it in a way that serves what it is that we're trying to do that is outside of ourselves. So I know Us and I had a conversation that I think is so interesting. Us, if it's okay if I share about AI agents. Is it okay with you?
Yes, sure.
Okay. We were talking about what happens, and it's happening already. What happens when your team, one of the job descriptions and your team members is now an AI agent? How does that influence in the room team coaching? And that's a question mark for me. I'm so curious about what that will look like.
Thank you so much, Whitney. Emmanuel, you want to build on
Yeah,
that,
thank you for
on
thank
your
you for
experience?
mentioning that, Whitney, because I must confess that I have a feeling that I'm a little bit late or a late legger in this AI kind of thing, because I'm using to some extent in my coach practice AI as tools for content or for to give access to some small or more tailor-made kind of resources or whatever to my coaching clients, might be individual or afterwards after team coaching sessions based on my notes and I can ask an AI also to formulate kind of homework for the team or whatever. So this can help, but I think it is really limited compared to the potential it has and to what it could be in very, very soon. And what you mentioned, saying that soon in our virtual hybrid kind of way of work, we easily can imagine that the most developed companies or more tech-oriented companies will come to any meeting with agents, and how to define whether they are part of the team or not. So these are really, it poses some ethical questions and technical and competency questions as well. So that's I do not have answers, but it's really tricking my mind. What I've done, however, is when I was working in team coaching in a virtual way, and when I was shadowing some meetings in leadership teams, I knew that they were using some AI agents to take notes or summaries and so on. And I encourage them, or I use based on those transcripts and so on, I use an AI to try to find, to train it and to find patterns and to identify patterns of what's happening according to the transcript of the meeting, in order to help them getting aware about what does an AI notice or not. I was a little bit bluffed because it was much more effective than I was thinking. So it's already very well developed.
Thank you so much.
Emmanuel,
Yes, go ahead, Whitney.
I was going to add, Emmanuel, when you're
Yeah.
sharing about your usage of it, and you mentioned ethics, I think there's a great responsibility that team coaches have to be trained in core competencies around ICF that specifically go through what does it mean to ethically practice as a team coach, especially when you're integrating AI. So I really appreciate that you made mention of that.
Thank you.
Radu, I don't know if you have
Yeah.
the question that Emmanuel was asking, but what is your experience with technology and AI? I know you have a very strong point of view as well on this.
Yeah, so yeah, to be honest, AI is here and it's here to stay. We need to learn to live with it and actually live better with it. And this is maybe my strongest question about what better is.
Mhm.
Yeah, of course, companies will always look at performance first. But what about the experience of people? So how do you make the experience? Because we are humans after all. Yeah. So how do you make the experience of the people in let's take an organization, yeah, to be fulfilling? Yeah. And what we see actually, there are a lot of paradoxes happening. So there are trends and counter trends happening in the same time. So the universe is expanding, but also we are more crowded. So a lot of things that are happening at the same time with sort of a, not compatible kind of way. So I think this is putting a lot of stress on humans. And we, as coaches, we need to be very aware about this kind of extremes overlapping, coming together, conflicting. And this is something that we need to learn to live with and coach people. And I hope that human coaches will still coach humans for quite a while. So
Mhm.
yeah, so this intersection of currents, let's say, it can produce sort of a whirlpool that we can use it to go down, or maybe an upgoing spiral to go up. So I think here is our role to look at the signs, let's say, to observe and put the responsibility on where is the responsibility has to be. So we are doing our job, but also we can support people to take the responsibility on their job.
Thank you so much, Radu. And I think this is something that's coming up quite a bit in the chat as well. The ethical parts, the confidentiality, anything that relates to data. Because when we talk about AI and technology, and I think this is still a very gray space. So I think this is something where we do have a responsibility when we work with clients, when we work with teams and individuals. I'm a little bit mindful of the time. I think we have another 20 minutes in front of us. So what I would love to do is just open up for some question and answer, or at least questions from the audience. So if you have any question to the entire panel, or maybe directed to some of them, just feel free to unmute yourself and let us know, or post it in the chat. We can take around 10 minutes, and then we'll share the gifts before we close the webinar. So any question to Radu, Emmanuel, Ava, or Whitney? You can either write it in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself as well.
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. You go. You go.
Yes, sorry. Hello from Spain. It's Mercedes. I was wondering if you could give advice to new coaches regarding online resources or materials that could help us develop our own experiences to work with teams.
I'll go ahead and jump in. Great question. We have at Team Coaching Global Alliance, we will be hosting a virtual free summit that happens June 15th through 19th. It'll be happening 9 to 12 Eastern time. You can sign up for whatever sessions are interesting to you, but you'll hear from world-class practitioners who are certified team coaches. And then you'll be able to choose different sessions that are interesting to you, or you can attend all of them, and that will go towards continuing education credits that are certified by ICF. So we'd love to have you. Thanks for dropping that in the chat there. Registration is now open, and that would be a great way to think about how you want to integrate more team coaching competencies within your practice. Also, there are, I should mention now too, Team Coaching Global Alliance has 2 different certification programs. I'm a proud alum. We have some alum here on the call with us. And it's an ICF pathway to team coaching. So that's also a great way if you're wanting to learn and be in a global community with some of the founding members of those who've created the ICF team coaching competencies.
Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you very much. I will see you there.
Yeah, yes, good. And if you have questions, I'll put my email in the chat, and that's for anyone. If you have questions about our programs or things that are coming up, I would be glad to have a conversation with you and support you in what would be helpful to you next in your team coaching development.
Any other question? I think someone else wanted to ask a question as well.
Yeah, mine is more of an observation. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, mine is actually more of an observation rather than a question, and it's about AI. It's just that I've noticed that how do I put this? The most efficient, the best use, and how to get the best results from AI this is what people are saying, seems to be about asking the right questions. And it just seems to be quite synchronous with coaching, because coaching is about asking the right questions. So yeah, it's just an observation about how the two seem to be quite similar.
Yeah,
because you get
I
the
agree.
best out of AI by asking the right questions, and you get the best out of your client by asking the right questions. So I just find that quite a coincidence. I don't know. It's just interesting observation.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. If I may jump in, what it inspires me is that indeed it is about prompting or the right question. However, what I understand about AI is that it is still, or the generative AI is typically or is only on a probabilistic basis. So it's not about it's not an intelligence as a human one. It's really based on a huge amount of data and then a probabilistic kind of complex algorithm putting. So what are the base changes to put that word after this one in this context or whatever. But as coaches, when it is about framing the right question, actually, it's not probabilistic, or at least this is how I see it and how I feel in my practice. It's more the experience and the intuition of what's happening in a very complex way, getting the sense of what is in the room, some things that you cannot really express, but you sense, you with your brain, with your heart, with the different senses, and your intuition, and I think, but that's only my advice, my opinion, that AI today is not that sort of intelligence. So it's a completely different process. But you're right about that parallel of asking the right question to get the good outcome.
And this makes me think that for sure the future team coach will need to change in terms of skills, let's say, and stronger systematical thinking is crucial. Also, ethical maturity, let's say, because we were talking about ethics as well. But I think this systematic thinking combined with technological literacy is something in the basis of the new skills of the team coach.
Thank you so much. Lo, I think you have a question?
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to jump in as well on the AI. So first, I fully agree with Emmanuel. It is probability, and I think one aspect you've not mentioned that I wanted to add to it is that it means creativity isn't there, and a team needs to create their own way. They need to find their own path. And when it comes to businesses, it's even more important because you do have copyright and stuff like this as well to take into consideration. And it brought a question because I see more and more coaches mentioning hybrid practices with AI, using AIs, etc. And in my consulting world, I might use it. In my coaching world, for now, I'm very strict on not using it because I haven't found tools that protect the confidentiality, protect the privacy of information well enough. And we are actually seeing now that many companies are changing the way they're using AI and or limiting the authorizations of using AI because of that issue, because they thought their information was protected and actually it isn't. And I just wondered if you have any specific tools or any specific ways that you use to protect your clients in that case. Don't know if that makes sense.
I would say that this is the contract that you sign at the very beginning, and there is a very, very big part concerning data protection, confidentiality, and so on and so on. But my main concern is coming from the AI tools, where how do you guarantee, in fact, that data protection is guaranteed, the confidentiality, the psychological safety, and everything around this? And this question maybe we should ask to the AI platforms, not us. But what concerns us as a guarantee, this is the contract that you sign.
I agree that my question was especially whether you'd found any tools that answered that concern. Because I've been in several AI coaching talks or calls, and even the ones who are very, very performant on AI seem to not necessarily have a very clear answer on that fuzzy part. And that's because the AI companies for themselves are not very transparent.
Exactly.
So I just thought it was worth putting it out there. I think, Emmanuel, in the case where you're taking what the clients have already used AI to create, and that to be analyzed by the same AI, you have limited risk because you're using their tool and you're using what they've already agreed to. But as coaches, it's
in the few
very...
cases Yeah. So I don't have a clearer answer to you, or I do not have any better advice or to advise a better tool because I've not that experience myself. But what I did pay attention when the few times I used these to compile or to make the kind of meta or to recognize patterns and so on, so was using the tools that the company was using in order not to create any breach, and I let the responsibility of using an AI to the team. So I was not bringing something that would expose the client outside of what they are already bearing in terms of risks and so on. So that was my borderline so far, and it will be for a while.
I might just add one thing, which is I think we need to be careful when we talk about AI because there's AI in the cloud, which operates in a very different way, but you can actually now have an AI that sits on your machine where it goes nowhere. And so that's a very different way to use AI in a means that's much more confidential. So I suspect that things may move in that direction of travel because for exactly the reasons that we're covering here. I guess I would just flag things are moving so fast. I'm just wary of being sort of complacent that things are going to be safe and that we'll be team coaching without AI forever. I don't think that's true.
Valid.
Thank you so much, Craig, for your intervention. Just opening up to the rest, is there any additional question, thoughts, reflection as we're getting towards the end of this webinar?
Yeah, I would like to know what kind of sessions that you have with the teams, because you talked a little bit about development and performance, but what kind of sessions do you actually have with them? Can you tell us a little bit about that? And open question for all of you, you can decide.
Who would like to take it?
Would you precise a bit your question? What are you most curious about? So concrete sessions we had with clients, or?
Yeah, what kind of sessions do you have? Because I know about having a team charter session, a vision and mission session to gather them and follow one goal. But what kind of sessions do you have? Just for some inspiration, what can I develop my own team coaching for and towards? Not to steal, just to get inspiration.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if I speak for myself, of course, but the most sessions that I had so far were not very much content driven and not known, for instance, in advance about, so we're going to do that, we're going to do a charter, or we're going to do, so that's where a little bit of consulting can step into a pure team coaching process or team coaching session. But in most of the sessions, I let the team first decide or check in individually, collectively. I always pay attention at the beginning of a team coaching session to reinforce what I call the tissue, or what I call the link between the interactions, the quality of the relational quality of the connections between the team members. And then we drive into, well, what does the team as a whole believe that it would be worth, or the worthiest dealing with today? So where are you as a team? What have you experienced since the last time, and what is to be focused on now? And we just dance with the moment, actually. So that's where I have no agenda, pre-written agenda, but I just support an honest and open discussion between team members about what really matters to them in the given time. That's usually how I handle team coaching sessions.
I do the same as Emmanuel. I do not have any content, but just to complement what he said, I think it's very important at the end to end with concrete actions. What do you do? Where do you go? How do you measure this? Maybe this is coming from my previous HR director role, but I'm a lot focused on, okay, we have conversation, we don't know the content, we focus on the present. At the end, we need to have concrete actions. We need to have the commitment, this to be done, and we need to have the deadlines within the people, the team will do the things.
Yeah. If I may add, or the tip or whatever, sharing experience is that by the end of a session, so as we have a kind of check-in, I usually do a checkout as well, and it's usually after the action plan, so to be sure that the team commits to some actions. But then typically in the checkout round, I would formulate or ask questions about, so what is your personal takeaway, individual one, generally about what happened here? And specifically, I ask also, what have you learned about the team dynamics today? What have you experienced and what have you learned about the team dynamics? And how are you committing, or what are you committed to do in order to help to support this positive change or shift in dynamics? So these are quite standard questions I have in the checkout round.
All right. Thank you so much for the question, Mads, and for your insights. Just a couple of things, and maybe Mercedes, you have a question on the chat since you mentioned about team dynamic, Emmanuel. What do you base your process on? Is it the Tuckman model? Is it something else? I know there's quite a few. Maybe Emmanuel, Radu, Ava, and Whitney. I'll let you answer in the chat. Maybe I can share one that we're working with Miki Island. We actually have a research partner called GDQ Associates. It was founded by Susan Whedon, and they have something called the Integrated Model of Group Development. It's called the IMGD model. Maybe Pauline is able to share that in the chat. It's quite unique, as in Susan Whedon tried to integrate a few different methodology, whether it was Tuckman, whether it was Lencioni. So this is something that's still very linear. Maybe you can have a look. I'm not too sure whether there's one that's better than the other. I'm not going to say that, and I don't think I know enough about this. But as we're getting towards the end of the webinar, just want to share some last information before we close. It was really a pleasure to have you here. If you are interested, once again, the Team Coaching Global Summit with Whitney and some people from the Team Coaching Global Alliance is coming very soon. There's going to be I think it's 32 sessions happening with 15 sessions with more than 32 experts. So a lot of knowledge will be given throughout. If you are interested to explore some more experiential learning tools, game-based learning program as part of your practice, whether for team coaching, team development, team performance, Miki Island is a potential solution that you might be interested in. It's an all-in-one team development platform that we designed with a research partner 5 years ago, that integrates a methodology, serious games, assessment, micro-learning, so different ways to kind of work with the teams in different settings. We are running various certification program, and that's the last gift that we have for all of you. If you are interested to explore that further, you can always get in touch with me or look on our website and potentially join the next certification program. It will be 15% off. With that, let me just, of this, I think we have 4 more minutes. We'd love to hear in the chat the one thing you're gonna live, or the one thing you're gonna remember after today, the key insights from this 90 minutes that you gave us and that we spent together. What was the golden nugget from these 90 minutes together? Please let us know in the chat. We'd love to see that.
They can share also by opening the mic, right?
Yes.
Yeah, good.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Don't sell team coaching, sell alignment, development, business excellence, Mads. Great. A group is not necessarily the same as a team. Absolutely, Isaac. All right. It's just, Svetana, thank you. Trust is an outcome. something that you work kind of towards too. And I loved what you said, Radu. This is not your responsibility as a team coach to create trust, but to create the environment for trust to happen. I think that's something that resonated as well quite a lot with Roxana. As we leave it for a couple of minutes, I'll come back to you, Emmanuel, Radu, Ava, and Whitney for one last word from you. So I give you a little bit of time to think and close the webinar on a high. Craig, sell a holistic organizational impact. Love that. Spend time knowing the client, the diagnostic at the beginning. That's something that Ava spoke quite a lot. That opened a lot of doors for her. Ilenia, collective intelligence and trust as an outcome. Love it. I think we have 2 minutes, so I'll start with you, Eva. One last word for our participants today.
Okay, I would say that as coaches and leaders, we must resist the temptation to become a kind of fixers. And just we need to go deeper into the diagnostics, knowing more about what is happening and going not to fix it, but to work on this as a process.
Thank you, Ava. Emmanuel?
Yeah, what comes to my mind is that to reflect on what you said about as team coach, we must not forget that we are not almighty and we are not magicians at all. Never sell that, and that we should never put the leader of the team leader in our shadow. So somehow we need to find the right place so that we reinforce the role and the statute of the team leader through the team coaching process. That's what I believe in.
Love that. Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Whitney, how about you?
The role of a team coach is like the front row seat to teams doing incredible things in the world. It's hopeful and restorative to see teams gather together and go after what only they can do in the world. And so if you're interested in becoming or expanding your team coaching process, we'd love to have you and support you in your work through Team Coaching Global Alliance.
All right. Radu?
I think as team coaches, we shouldn't be so serious. So actually, of course, maybe you know I think ICF definition includes this creative process. And creativity comes a lot when people are in this kind of mood, and this is why I love using games and simulation in my experience, because it brings the creativity up. And this is the only human trait that will distinguish us in the long run. We cannot compare with AI in terms of knowing, but in terms of creativity, this is where we can excel. Okay.
Thank you so much, Radu. I have nothing to say because that's what I wanted to say, Radu. So you steal it from me. I wanted to say something around enjoying the process. And as you can see with the Miki Island brand, that's something that we care a lot about, doing very serious things, but doing it in a very playful, engaging manner. So thank you so much, everyone, for giving us an hour and a half of your time. We're going to be running more event. So please stay in touch with us. You can follow us on LinkedIn, connect with us on LinkedIn and join the upcoming webinar. And if you have any insight feedback, want to take the conversation further, we'd love to make that happen and have you part of the Miki Island community. Thank you so much, everyone. We really appreciated the last 90 minutes and hopefully you are a little bit wiser after this 90 minutes with you, Emmanuel, Radu, Ava, and Whitney. Thank you so much, everyone, for today.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Gabriela, I saw you wanted to take a picture. Maybe I'll send you a picture or the recording so you have it with everyone.
Yes.
I didn't do
Please.
that.
Thank
We'll do
you.
that. My pleasure. Thank you so much for coming, Gabriela.
Thank you.